Hi, I'm Phil Dispenza, and this is Collecting, Investing, or Somewhere in Between. This is part two of episode two, and today we are going to discuss the Atari 5200 and 7800. So, I mentioned at the beginning of episode two, part one, that I was actually going to cover Atari Lynx and Jaguar. Since I do not have these games, my own personal games handy, they're packed away somewhere. I'm going to leave that for possible future episode. So enjoy these two systems. Okay, we're back. Moving on to the 5200. I had a lot of examples here, but again, I mentioned earlier, I never really played any of them. You would test the cartridge by putting it in the system, but um, as I said, the controllers had a tendency of breaking, um, and I think there are people who fixed them out there. Um, Not too sure. I think there used to be. I have no clue. I never pursued having anything fixed, but 5200 had improved graphics. And what I'm going to say is pretty much a lot of the games that were rare for the 2600 are also rare for the 5200. Now I'm going to show you an example of the cartridge and how big it was compared to the 2600 cartridge. So I have Real Sports Tennis, and next to it is something I just picked up was Death Trap for the 2600. Now if you see, there's a much bigger, it's like an extra inch wide. So again, this 5200 be taking up more room um, than your 2600 cartridges, but the library is a lot smaller. The one thing that they did with the 5200, and similar, the controllers, even though it had a joystick, had a number pad. And like in television, they created overlays. So the only reason why I pulled Real Sports Tennis to compare the cartridge size was to also show you the overlay. So the overlay would go over the number keypad of the controller, and then, you can do various things. It says choose a number of players or skills and things. Sometimes they would use all the numbers, sometimes they wouldn't use much at all. But I wanted to talk about some of the games I have and suggestions for rarity. But again, 5200 is not as rare. You're not going to find, well, you shouldn't. I don't think, I haven't really researched too much as to value now, but just rarity that I've known about all these years. But I doubt if you're going to find cartridges that are going to be worth anywhere near Atari rarity cartridges. So, again, early on, somebody grades it, uh, and then, somebody will pay you $1,000, $2,000. But then, you know, you'll realize that it's out there somewhat. I mean, it's not a lot, but oh, I didn't mention something. I'm going to say it now so I don't forget, because I was talking to somebody who has been avidly buying sealed games. And he said to me, he's like, there's about 60 games out there for the 2600 that are plentiful sealed. And he says that, it's giving the Atari a bad name because people think that there's tons of this stuff out there. But, I mentioned last video, and I mean, it was 2 hours long, the reason why, a lot of this stuff isn't out there sealed. Uh, Early stuff, especially because of the fact that, it's the same thing with the Nintendo or whatever. People bought the games, they opened them, and the sell through was incredible. So the stores, Sears or retail toys stores who carried Atari, the mail order stores, I'd see some mail order ads in some of the gaming magazines back then. They'd sell through. So there wouldn't be extra overstock of early stuff because it was a sell through. And that's why Atari kept making those changes, the revisions with the box, they'd re-release it because, they'd sell out, but there was still demand for it. So they'd make the next one, and then they'd change it and revision it. And next year or 6 months later, they'd make the new box and sell out. And so some of the stuff's out there sealed, like asteroids. You'll find cases of sealed asteroids. But I don't know if 5200, how desirable. Again, it's the same thing. The most popular things are probably the ones that are going to, sell the best. And a lot of the 5200 games, they didn't make from the 2600. So, you won't see certain arcade games and things. And they waited till 7800, which I'll get to next. I have a good selection of them. I think I own half the library, or over half the library sealed, because I jumped on that early. But to move on, one game I do have sealed, made by Atari, and I'm putting it here rare. I had actually, I think, about 3 or 4 of these when I first found them. I don't remember where I found it, but it is Gremlins. It is, notice it's not shrink wrapped, but it is glued. And if you look at the top, which I mentioned in the video of my website, this is what I call the tab variant. When you find 2600 boxes, it's like a cereal box. It's glued at the top, and then it just tucks in. So Gremlins, probably a very good, even though I had a few. What's a few? 3. And how many sealed Gremlin 5200s? I think they were out there, but I don't think it's that common to the point where it's not a good investment. Okay, so I got a few Activision games. I pulled Kaboom. I didn't mention Kaboom in the last one, but this is a totally different type of, let me try to get the glare off, a totally different type of box. It's a photo box. You don't see too many photo boxes when it comes to Atari games. And even the back, you see the little man. He's dressed up in his pinstripe prison outfit. See if I get a better angle. Everything is a little glaring too much. But he's holding his ears shut. But probably a good investment. It's, a lot of the Activision games. I don't know if there are too many out there, but that are, I don't think that any of the companies actually made that many games. Another one I don't think I mentioned, but this is it's not, I don't know if it's rare or not, but for the 2600, I couldn't find this too often, even loose. River Raid. This is a boxed, it's a little beat up, but again, I think anything 5200 may be worth buying and getting graded if it's priced reasonably. I don't think I'd pay $500 for a sealed game, unless it's the one I'm going to talk about later when I get to suggestions that I don't have samples of. I got a couple of Activision games that weren't released for the 2600, maybe not even released for, I don't think it was released for the 7800. It's possible they were released for some of the computers. I have some Atari computers. I don't know how detailed I'm going to get into with all the computers. There's a lot of computers out there. I might do just a quick video on the computers themselves, but I don't think I'm going to get into details. Okay, so the first Activision game I have boxed. For some reason, I do not have the manuals to either one of these I'm going to show you. This is called Zenji, and like I said, it was never released for the 2600. The box art's pretty cool. The guy almost looks like a ghost. You see the eyes in the middle there. And then I have Zone Ranger. And again, this box is rather beat up. But, if you find stuff like this sealed, even if it's not perfect, you could pick it up for $25 to $50, get it graded. These two, I didn't open the other one, but they have an open flap. So you see a lot of computer games back then used to do that. So you can get ideas. Usually they have screenshots, but this one doesn't. So the couple Activision games that I showed you, it's probably good. Um, One of the most popular games, arcade games, Frogger, which again, I don't think I showed you last time. I showed you Popeye and Cubert. I don't think I showed you Frogger. I had an opportunity, and I probably kicking myself in the butt. I didn't buy a sealed copy of this. The guy wanted $25, and this is before the new grading company came out, or right around when it first started. So they weren't doing Atari games, and I kept thinking 25. I knew I had this game boxed, so did I really want it sealed and spend another 20? I probably should have jumped on it because getting it sealed, graded sealed, maybe $1,000. Again, I'm going to open it up. The manuals, about the same size as Atari one, and the inside of the box is a little different. They don't have that where the cartridge tucks in. Why? Because the cartridge is a little too big. All right. So the last box game that I'm going to show you, it's popular on all the systems. It looks like my camera moved. Not good. Anyway. This is fun. I told you I'm not stopping anything. I don't care, bloopers or not. Enjoy it. Okay, now we're back. I will stop moving. I don't have a stationary camera because I disconnect it. Never know with these hackers. And this is not a laptop computer. You know what? I gotta cut this because this is ridiculous. Okay, I'm back. I had a couple of technical difficulties there. Camera started moving on its own. And I was mentioning, even though I probably just cut it off already because camera was bouncing all over the place and falling over. I don't have it mounted, so I don't trust somebody hacking into my computer and starting filming stuff. So I disconnect this camera all the time, and it's easier to just. Because what happens is I'm going to turn this camera around for the screenshots. I was using some software that allowed me, the software I'm recording with, that allowed me to do the screenshot without the camera, and then it was a trial, so I lost it. So when I do the Atari age, when I did the Atari age, since it's already passed, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to just turn the camera around to the screen. So as I was saying, Miner 2049er. A lot of this game was literally ported on most of the systems out there. The computers, various systems, 7800 and ColecoVision. So you'll see this is one of the more popular games. What I put on as probably one of the rarest games, probably the rarest game. For the 5200 is the sequel to that. That's it's weird because CBS made. Oh no, I don't think CBS made it. My brain's not working again. Big Five Software is the one who makes this. I don't think they made this for the 2600. I thought it was a different company, but I'll get into it. But the sequel, it's Tiger Vision. Okay, is Miner 2049 2. Well, they didn't call that. They didn't give it that title for the 5200. They cut out that, and then they put colon Bounty Bob Strikes Back. And so you go to the Atari 2600, you get Bounty Miner 2049 2 Bounty Bob Strikes Back. Well, for 5200, it's called Bounty Bob Strikes Back just by itself. And like I said, price guide I was using when I discovered, I said there was a price guide out there back in the 90s. Gave this, the Bounty Bob, the sequel to this, Miner 2049er, a rarity of 9 out of 10. The only time they ever give 10s is if there's only a few known, or like prototypes or something. Things that are like impossible to find. Okay, so Bounty Bob Strikes Back, if you could ever find that thing, even loose, probably worth buying and grading. Okay, one thing I did have, and I never remember what I buy because I have so many games for all these systems. This is called Castle Blast. This was the first homebrew. And remember, I showed you other homebrews for the 2600. Some of the prototypes and stuff unreleased, but that Fat Albert game and things, people make. But this was the first homebrew for the 5200. Came out in 2002, and as you could see up front, limited number. It doesn't say how many were made. I don't remember, but mine's number 27. So I wanted to show you some of the rare games that I don't have boxed, but are loose. I don't know if this is too rare, Blueprint, but I just wanted to show you this because the CBS Electronics, their cartridge is a little strange. It's got this like sort of T handle down here. But I just wanted to show you that. And so if you have CBS games, you're going to have strange T handles. Like I mentioned earlier in this section, the rarer games for the 2600 are usually the rarer games for the other systems. So I pull out Pitfall 2. Great if you can find this boxed, because it's very difficult. Even loose. It's not a lot money. I can say that a lot. a lot. Frogger 2, sequel to Frogger. This is usually rare on every system if you find it, because Frogger's popular, and then they came out with the sequel. Mr. Do, loved the game, and like I mentioned in the 2600, Mr. Do's Castle is a lot more rare than regular Mr. Do. I don't think there's a Mr. Do released for the 5200, but Mr. Do's Castle, since Parker Brothers had it, not Coleco. And Star Wars, the arcade game. I didn't show it. This is rare, but the Death Star battle, Return of the Jedi, is actually more rare. Probably in the top 5 of 5200 games of rarity, maybe the top 3. I have it loose, but it got chewed on by mice or something, because the labels also, or maybe dogs. Sometimes the dogs will start chewing on some of the games. People used to bring me stuff all the time that were just beat, and if I didn't have it, I kept it because it was the only copy I ever came across. And with all the systems out there, what did I want to concentrate on? A lot of times I didn't upgrade for these, especially 5200. I said I never cared for it, but if I came across and it was reasonable enough for to buy, I would purchase it. So a few other suggestions for the 5200 before I move on to the 7800. James Bond. I just showed you all these Parker Brother games. James Bond 007, another one that's decently rare for the 2600. It's also rare for the 5200. There's a title, I showed you the CBS Blueprint, called Crazy, K-R-A-Z-Y, Crazy Shootout. Another probably top 5 of the rarest games for the 5200. Meteorites is another one. I think it was made by Electra or something. I never have come across it. I never really searched for it either. Montezuma's Revenge, another rarity. Parker Brothers for the 2600, rare for 5200. And then Rescue on Fractalus, which might be Activision if I remember right. I actually have that sealed, but I couldn't find it because, like I said, all my stuff is in Tucker totes and boxes and things. I'm about to try to display my 2600 sealed and boxed games on some shelving I just purchased. So that's my 5200 suggestion. 7800, I'm going to be showing you a lot more, especially sealed games. So hang on, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. On to the Atari 7800. I think their library is rather small. Offhand, I can't remember exactly. Uh, 70 to 80 games total. Um, I looked through my list. I have 33 sealed games. And a lot of these, like I mentioned um, earlier in the other video about O'Shea, O'Shea's Warehouse. Now, I bought a decent amount of sealed games from him for the 7800, but not everything was readily, it wasn't plentiful. Um, and I'm going to go through these and say which ones I think are probably rare, even though I got from him. Sometimes he had cases and cases and cases, like the one-on-one basketball, Dr. J. You'll see someone he's trying to sell online. I think for like $300 something. If I remember right, I have at least 10 of those still, maybe 8. Anyway, so some of the games, like I said, he didn't have even a case. So, I bought me whatever he had, 3 copies, 5 copies, or whatever. If he didn't have a sealed case of 6. So I think when I talked to him that time, when I first did this order, I just went down the list and he told me, okay, I only have so much of this, but I have cases and cases of this. So, again, 7800, I had no clue. You're going to see a lot of unique games for 7800. Since there aren't too many games, um, the rarity, especially the third-party software, not Atari released. Most of the games are released by Atari. Probably say at least 75% of them are Atari released games. But I guess they weren't doing too well, so they came out with whatever they did and, moved on or quit for a while, for a couple of years before they went on to the Atari Lynx, like I said. So, first game I'm going to do, I'm going right in alphabetical order of what I pulled aside. And it's a game never seen before on other systems called Ace of Aces. And it's like a flight simulator. You can see the cockpit on the back. This is sealed. It's got a scratch along my shrink wrap there. But, this is one of the games I don't think I bought from O'Shea. It's probably a lot rarer than most of the other games. Most common games are, the Real Sports Baseball or Miss Pac-Man, I think was common. Can't think. There's like Centipede, a lot of the arcade things, arcade release games. So, next game, another one you've never heard of, Basket Brawl. Yes, that's brawl as in fighting. And again, you look at the graphics, they're much better graphics. I'll try to put it a little closer. Let's see. It looks more like street basketball. It's something you're going down the block or something from your house if you're living in the city like I did. You just had hoops, sometimes no net. But probably one of the rarer ones. If you could find them sealed, probably get it graded. Another game not released for the other systems called Cracked, and it's a bunch of eggs. I don't even know. Since mine's sealed, I never played this. I don't think I got a loose copy at all. But I would actually, when I first, like I mentioned, I bought that 7800. So that's the one I was using to play and test games on. Because most 2600 games played on the 7800. Okay, so one of my favorites, I don't know if you'll remember this from the arcade, was Crossbow. This is one of the probably more common games for the 7800, but you would pick an area, desert, forest, or whatever, and all the characters you had, they would slowly walk across the screen, and I think creatures would come after them or things would fall from the sky and hit them. So you had to use if you played it in the arcade, you actually had like a real mock prop crossbow and you used the light gun technology at the time, and then you'd shoot the stuff before your characters could be killed, and they make it across. And that's one game that they had on the 2600, and they made it for the 7800. Another popular one, Donkey Kong. I don't know if this is rare, but it's Donkey Kong. And, like I said, the graphics were better. They have the elevator board, which the ColecoVision had. 2600, was terrible. And of course, Donkey Kong Jr. So Donkey Kong Jr., again, graphics look much better like the ColecoVision. I think that's the Atari 7800 probably had technology, even though it was several years later, compatible or comparable, I mean, with the ColecoVision. Here's another game that's pretty rare, not released for anything else, called Fight Night, which is a boxing game. And you can see the graphics on the back. Like I said, most of these, if you find sealed, I would recommend getting graded if they don't sell for hundreds. The ones that weren't from O'Shea, that were, that are not in quantity, I wouldn't doubt they would sell 500 to 1,000 or maybe more at this present moment. I don't know when, down the road, 2 years, 5 years from now. It all depends on the census, when they start coming out with a census on these things. And the easiest thing for you to do, and I think I've mentioned this in the last video, is go online, see how many copies are available for sale, and look at the sold. Completed is tough because most people relist, and if you go to just the completed auctions, the ones that didn't sell, and that include the ones that didn't sell, sometimes you'll see the same item didn't sell for three or four listings in a row. So it's only one available, even though there's 3 listings, because the guy just kept relisting it. So my suggestion is see what's available, and then make your decision on purchasing. How much money you want to spend. But I would research how much is available. I had not, and it's probably going to be a little difficult for me unless I use websites. I haven't done any research on variations for the 7800. So that I didn't even mention it. Same thing with the 5200. There's probably a couple of variations. I don't think there would be a lot, because most of these were probably released once, because it came out so late. I think most of these are dated 86, 87, 88, 90. Matt Mania Challenge. Atari's, I guess, Atari's wrestling game, because you had the wrestling game from the 2600 made by Absolute. But so here, I hope that was right. My brain's still not working. So again, sealed. This is one of the rarer games. If you could find it sealed. I did get this from O'Shea, but that I know for a fact I did not get. I might have gotten one case, but he didn't have that in multiples. Probably one of my most recommended games to get graded. It probably wouldn't fetch the most money, but this he only had 3 of, and I bought all 3. And it's called Midnight Mutants. Grandpa Munster. If you're familiar with the Munsters, cross collecting, people who love the Munsters, 60s comedy horror TV show, more comedy than horror, but vampires, Frankenstein, wolf, Eddie the Wolf, Wolf Boy, Wolf Man, Wolf Boy. But since it has Grandpa Munster on there, and it actually says featuring Grandpa on the bottom, I suggest, it looks like my shrink wrap is starting to peel a little. It's the problem with these games. Sometimes the shrink wrap continues to shrink. Another game that's rather rare, I don't think he had more than a couple of copies, was it's Ninja Golf. It's another one that combines ninjas and golf. Seems a little goofy, but Maybe that's why it's rarer. It didn't sell well. Another game you've never heard of. It's called Scrapyard Dog. And this one I did have a couple of cases. It looks like my shrink wrap split on the bottom almost completely, but it's still sealed. Um, I don't think I have any more copies left. I have no idea what you do in this game. Alright, I got two more sealed games, and then I'll move on to a couple of loose games. This one's important. It's called Sentinel, and this is a foreign released game only. As you see, is mostly in France, they said. I have no clue where I picked this up, but if you looked at price guides that separate the international games from the U.S. games, this is not shown in the U.S. section. It's only in the international section. According to what I understand, the game did not play or does not play on NTSC US Atari 7800 systems at all. As we always discussed, PAL, the screen rolls. Well, supposedly this doesn't even do that. It might have a title screen and then it just goes blank or something. So it's supposedly unplayable, but I have mine sealed. It's got a little dent on top. Another game, which is cool because it's a helicopter flight simulator, is called Super Yui. It's my last sealed game that I'm showing. This one came out in '88. So, a lot of these games, you're not going to find quantities. Like I said, what you might find quantities, there were games like Jinx, tons. I ordered, I think, 4 cases. A lot of times, I maybe no more than 3 cases of a game. So I think I had no more than 18 copies. But a lot of times, they had a lot of stuff. Winter Games was quite common. Ball Blazer. Is it Ball Blazer? I don't know. My brain is still not working. I'm not going to look it up right now, but maybe I'll correct myself somewhere in the comments. But anyway, so a couple of loose games. I wanted to point out one of the rarest games made by Atari. It's called Mean 18 Ultimate Golf. I have it loose. In fact, my end label is torn. But the one thing I wanted to point out, and I never even took notice to that, is see the little P sticker? This is a PAL version, meaning if I put it in my system, my screen will roll. This is made for foreign television sets. One of the few rare games that I actually have that are not Atari, third party, is Water Ski. This is made by Froggo. You find this stuff sealed, you jump on it because this is probably so rare. You probably can find copies maybe loose, and you'll be paying $50. So a few suggestions. Some of the rarer games, not necessarily fortunes, but I have my little list there. Commando is actually made by Atari. I didn't read up on it, so I don't know if it had anything to do with the movie. Double Dragon, very popular. Most people know that name. Put out by Activision. I do not own a lot of these. I don't even own them loose. Atari Warriors, also put out by Atari. And if you remember, Atari Warriors, I mentioned for the 2600, is very common. Well, for the 7800, it's not. Because they found a warehouse full of sealed Atari Warriors. Impossible Mission. Now, this isn't probably as rare as some of the other games, but I love this game. And I used to play for the Commodore 64, and it was difficult because you had, I don't know if it was 3 hours or 4 hours to complete the entire mission, and you had to find pieces of a puzzle, and then eventually you had to put it together and stuff. And you had these robots, and sometimes they would just run into you. Sometimes they'd shoot, and you jump over them. You had to jump on different levels, and you'd have to explore one room after another, and you'd go down an elevator. And this game was like awesome. And eventually, every time you got hit, you didn't die. It would take off maybe 10 minutes off your clock. So, you get hit enough, then, you run out of time and then you failed. And it took me a while, but eventually I actually finished the game. But according to the price guide I have, and I was reading up on it because I said I love it so much, is that it was there was glitches in it that you couldn't finish the game, and then when it was released, PAL version, they fixed those glitches, and there's a rumor, and again, this price guide's 20 something years old, so I don't know how accurate the information is since then. So maybe somebody has updated on the internet, but they said the NTSC was fixed maybe later in the run. So, but I finished the game, and then you would on a Commodore you could save because it was a diskette. You could save your name. I finished the game, and then you'd load it up and have all the top players who finished the game and their time and stuff. And I improved over time. So even if it's not worth grading, if you have a 7800, you can buy it loose. I'd probably suggest playing it, or even for a computer. Um, Kung Fu Master. This was released by Activision originally in 2600, but this version is is by Absolute, who put out Pete Rose Baseball, which I also am mentioning here. And they didn't have too many games for the 20. There were only 4 games, and yes, wrestling was one of them. There's not too many games for the 7800 here either. 2 more mentioned. Rampage. I think I showed you the box for the 2600. Great arcade game. It's by Activision, same as 2600. Good suggestion if you could find it, invest in it, get it graded if it's sealed. And finally, probably one of the rarest for the 7800 is Tank Command by Froggo. I showed you the water ski. Tank Command's even rarer than that. I do not have. So hopefully everything I've made, suggestions, information and things, do your homework again. So thanks for watching, and that'll conclude our 2 Atari other systems. And we'll see you next time, next week actually. We're going to be featuring the Intellivision, and we'll move on from there. So you want to subscribe, like this video, make comments, ask questions, and hope to see you next time.